In this lesson, we'll be covering the element of art known as value. Value is a pretty straightforward element of art. It basically means how light or dark something is. And I like to give students this visual image of going into a paint store or going into Lowe's, going back to the paint section, something like that. And you get those little color swatches that have how light or dark a color is. That is a value scale. It's mainly used for telling variations in depth, distance, and shading. So the use of it is to make something look three-dimensional. So even though this is a two-dimensional surface, a piece of paper, but the use of shading changes this into a form. And form is another element of art that we'll get into later. For now, we're going to be focusing on the shading aspect of it, and that is what value is. Now, there's actually 4 different types of shading that we are going to be getting into, or 4 different ways to make value. The first one is called shading, and shading is whenever you take your pencil and you hold it a very specific way. For instance, like this, where you have your 3 fingers on your hand wrapped around the wooden part of the pencil, your thumb resting on the bottom of the pencil, your pointer finger near the top of the pencil. And the idea behind this is you are going to lay the pencil down on a piece of paper like this, so you have more surface area. That will allow you to shade more effectively. What you want to do is hold the pencil like this, go around in small circles and apply pressure, and that will get you a darker value. So how you make a value scale using shading is you go to your darkest area or the darkest square that you see up here, hold the pencil like you're supposed to, and go around in really tight circles and apply pressure while it's laying on its side. That will widen out your surface area, make it easier to shade, and it will also allow you to get darker values because you can apply more pressure this way than you can this way. And then you move over to the next square. You widen out your circle a little bit, pick up on your pencil, and then you make a lighter value. And you continue going down those squares until you get to the very last square, which is white. And you don't have to do anything with that because, I mean, the paper's white. So, you know, easy job right there. Good work.
Wow.
The next thing we're going to be looking at is hatching. Hatching is very simple. It is a diagonal line that goes one direction. That's it. Just one direction diagonal line. The closer together the diagonal line is, the less of the white paper you can see, therefore the darker the value. Whenever you space those lines further apart, you see a little bit more and a little bit more of the white paper, and that gives you the illusion that there's different values there. So it gets from darker, where all the lines are really close together, then the lines are spaced further apart and spaced further apart, and it gets lighter and lighter and lighter until the very last square, where it's just a blank white square.
Wow.
The third way to make a value is with crosshatching, and crosshatching is done exactly the same way as hatching, except for every diagonal line you go one way, you make another diagonal line going the other way. It's kind of like crisscrossing. So you have your fingers like this, for instance. When they're closer together, you can't see through them, and as the lines get further apart, you can start seeing a little bit more. That's crosshatching.
Wow.
And the last one is stippling, but we're not going to be doing stippling. The reason why is because I always have kids that destroy my art supplies for doing stippling, because with stippling, you're just make a dot and then you move over and make a dot and you move over and make another dot, and then before long someone grabs a handful of pencils and go blah, 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 and just ruins my tables. Here's some examples of different types of values. Hatching and cross hatching up at the top, as well as stippling down at the bottom. This is an example of proper shading using pencils. This is an example of hatching and cross hatching using chalk. And finally, an example of stippling using a pencil that, once again, we're not going to do. So that leads me to your all's lesson. You're actually going to be having 2 days to work on this. The first day, we are going to be working on a value scale, and I'm going to be showing you the proper way to hold a pencil, how to properly shade. Tomorrow, you're going to be making a series of circles that you're then going to shade and turn into spheres. and make them look 3D. I always make sure to give you examples. Just like this one. For today, you're going to be getting a piece of paper that looks something like this. So to begin, hold your pencil like we have in the video here. This is the correct way to hold your pencil whenever you're shading. You have your 3 fingers wrapped around the middle part of the pencil, your pointer finger near the top of the pencil so you can apply pressure, your thumb resting on the side for a brace. Using this, you can lay the pencil on its side and you can accurately shade, which I'll show you in a moment. Now, if this is too difficult for you, because my fingers have been broken so many times over the years that I can't really hold my pencil like that. Instead, how I like to hold the pencil is like this. And I'm about ready to show you. Like that. Because it achieves the same thing. It's just easier for me to hold the pencil that way. Now, it's up to you however you'd like to hold the pencil, doesn't matter, as long as it's laying on its side, and you will need a wooden pencil for this. The first step is to go ahead and mark out stippling, because you're not going to be using that. We're not doing it. Go ahead, mark it out. Now, the first one that we're going to be working on is going to be the shading box up at the top. Now, I work dark to light. It doesn't really matter how you like to do this. I like to start with the darker values and go to the lighter values. If you want to go the other way around, that's perfectly fine. But something you want to keep in mind is do not let your palm of your hand pass over something you've already shaded, because then you're going to smudge and smear your artwork all to pieces. You're also not allowed to smudge in this assignment. You're never going to be allowed to smudge in any of the art classes that I have because, and I'll get to this in a later video, as a quick once over with it, it damages your paper by getting oils from your fingers on your paper. It also is a very sloppy way of achieving blending. Don't smudge. So start off by holding your pencil the correct way, go around in small circles, applying pressure and filling in the first square. Once you have that filled in, move over to the next square, lift up on your pencil a little bit, widen out your circles, and you'll get a lighter value. From there, you are going to continue on the boxes all the way down until you have the entire value scale filled in. The next one that we're doing is hatching. Hatching is diagonal line, and the closer the lines are together, the darker the value. So go ahead and fill in the first box with all diagonal lines really close together, all going the same direction. Next box over, space those lines a little bit further apart. Next one, space them a little bit more further apart, and continue down until the very last square doesn't have any lines in it at all. The last box is cross-hatching, and cross-hatching, I like to fill it in with lines going the same direction one way, and then I go back over it with diagonal lines going the other way. It's easier for me. If you would just like to crisscross them one at a time, perfectly fine, doesn't matter. The idea is it is hatching both directions. Closer together lines are, darker value. As they get further apart, the lighter the value. Go ahead, fill in the value scale with those, and that's going to be the end of the assignment for today. Tomorrow, we're going to be starting another lesson, which is drawing circles on a paper. So start with 3 circles that you draw on a paper. I will give you stencils for this. That's perfectly fine. And we are going to be filling those 3 circles in with the different value types. And we want to first start off by drawing little ovals on each one of the circles to indicate the different areas of lightness. So start with a circle up at the top like you have here and draw rings going down. The topmost circle or topmost ring is going to be white, and then going down from there is going to progress the value scale going down to the darker value. So the darker value is always going to be at the bottom. Doing this, you're going to work your way up the same way you did with the value scale, and then it's going to look like you have a 3-dimensional ball on your paper. If you'd like to add in a shadow with it, you can. The next circle you're going to be doing, you're going to be using hatching. So go ahead and add in the hatching lines and try to make it look as realistic as you can. The final one is going to be cross-hatching. And same thing as before, try to make it look as realistic as you can. If you want to add in shadows, perfectly fine. And that is going to be your all's lesson for today. If you have any questions, please let me know. Hope you enjoy the lesson.